Maria Santos woke up at 4:30 in the morning, just like she had done every single day for the past 8 years. The alarm on her old phone buzzed softly in the darkness of her tiny studio apartment in Queens. She didn't need it, really. Her body had learned to wake up on its own by now. But she kept it on anyway, just in case. She got dressed in the dark. Black pants, white shirt, comfortable shoes. The same uniform she wore every day. She tied her long black hair into a neat bun, splashed cold water on her face, and grabbed the thermos of coffee she had prepared the night before. By 5:15 she was on the subway, watching the city wake up through the dirty windows. Maria was 42 years old, but most days she felt much older. Her hands were rough from years of cleaning, scrubbing, and polishing. Her back ached from bending and reaching, but she never complained. This job was everything to her. It paid for her small apartment, sent money back to her mother in the Philippines, and kept her sister's children in school. By 6 in the morning, she was standing outside the Harrington family's penthouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. She used her key to let herself in quietly. The apartment was still dark and silent. That's how the Harringtons liked it. They wanted their home to be clean and perfect, but they didn't want to see or hear the person who made it that way. The penthouse was enormous. 12 rooms spread across the entire top floor of a building that overlooked Central Park. Maria knew every corner of it. She knew which floorboards creaked, which windows stuck when you tried to open them, and which rooms got the best morning light. She had been cleaning this place longer than the Harrington children had lived here. She started her day the same way she always did. Kitchen first. She emptied the dishwasher that had run overnight, wiped down the marble countertops, and set up the coffee maker for when Mr. Harrington woke up. Then she moved through the living room, dusting the expensive furniture and straightening the designer cushions that cost more than she made in a month. The Harringtons were nice enough people. They weren't mean to her. They just didn't really see her. Mrs. Harrington would sometimes say good morning if they passed in the hallway, but her eyes would look right through Maria, already thinking about her yoga class or lunch meeting. The 2 teenage children barely knew her name. To them, she was just part of the house, like the furniture or the appliances. Maria didn't mind being invisible. In some ways, it made the job easier. She could move through the rooms quietly, lost in her own thoughts, and nobody bothered her. But sometimes, late at night in her apartment, she wondered when she had become this person. When had she stopped being Maria and become just the housekeeper? That wasn't who she used to be. Back in the Philippines, in another lifetime, Maria had been somebody. She had been a pianist, a real one. She had studied at the conservatory in Manila from the time she was 10 years old. Her teacher said she had magic in her fingers, a rare gift that couldn't be taught. By 16, she had won competitions. She had played in concerts. She had earned a full scholarship to continue her studies. Music was everything to her back then. When she played piano, she wasn't just hitting keys. She was telling stories, painting pictures with sound, making people feel things they couldn't put into words. When her fingers touched the piano, she felt alive in a way that nothing else could make her feel. But then her father got sick. Cancer. The medical bills piled up fast. Her family needed money desperately, and her mother was already working 2 jobs. Maria was the oldest of 4 children. She knew what she had to do. She dropped out of the conservatory. She said goodbye to her piano teacher, who cried and begged her to reconsider. She promised herself it would just be for a little while, just until her father got better and the bills were paid. She would go to America, work for a few years, and then come back to finish her studies. That was 15 years ago. Her father passed away 3 years after she left. By then, Maria was working as a housekeeper in New York, sending money home every month. Her younger siblings needed to finish school. Her mother needed help. There was never a right time to stop working and go back to music. The years passed. Her fingers, once so skilled and quick on the piano keys, became skilled at different things: scrubbing, polishing, folding. She stopped thinking about music. It hurt too much to remember what she had lost. But every single day, Maria walked past the Harrington family's grand piano. It sat in the corner of their living room, facing the windows that overlooked the park. It was a Steinway, black and glossy and absolutely beautiful, worth more than Maria would earn in 5 years. Maybe 10. The Harringtons never played it. Mrs. Harrington had bought it 3 years ago because an interior designer said every sophisticated home needed a piano. The children had taken lessons for a few months before they got bored and quit. Now it just sat there looking expensive and impressive. Maria dusted it every Tuesday and Friday. She ran her cloth carefully over its perfect surface, wiped the keys gently, polished the wood until it gleamed, and every single time something inside her chest felt tight and painful. Sometimes, when she was completely alone in the apartment, she would stop dusting and just stand there looking at it. Her fingers would twitch, remembering. She could almost feel the weight of the keys under her hands, almost hear the music that used to pour out of her. But she never touched it. Never played a single note. It wasn't her piano. She was just the housekeeper. At night in her studio apartment, Maria had a small electronic keyboard. It was old and didn't even make sound anymore. The speaker had broken years ago and she never had the money to fix it. But she kept it anyway. Some nights when she couldn't sleep, she would sit in front of that silent keyboard and play. Her fingers would move across the keys in the darkness, playing Chopin and Rachmaninoff and all the pieces she used to know by heart. No sound came out, just the quiet clicking of the keys. She would play for hours like this in complete silence, and somehow it helped. It reminded her that once, a long time ago, she had been someone different. Someone with dreams and talent and a future full of possibility. But that was before. This was now. Now she was Maria the housekeeper, and that piano in the Harrington living room was not for her. It was just another expensive thing she had to dust and keep clean. That's what she told herself every day as she walked past it, until the day she couldn't walk past it anymore. It was a Tuesday in late September when everything changed. Maria arrived at the penthouse at 6 in the morning like always. But something was different. The apartment felt emptier than usual, quieter. She found the note on the kitchen counter, Mrs. Harrington's handwriting, neat and rushed at the same time. They had left for their summer house in the Hamptons unexpectedly. Some issue with contractors that needed immediate attention. They would be gone for 3 days. Maria read the note twice. 3 days. The apartment would be completely empty for 3 whole days. She should have felt relieved. It meant she could work at her own pace, take her time, maybe even leave a little early. But instead she felt something else, something that made her hands shake slightly as she folded the note and put it back on the counter. She tried to focus on her work. She cleaned the kitchen, scrubbed the bathrooms, changed the sheets in all the bedrooms. She vacuumed and dusted and organized. By noon she had finished almost everything. The apartment was so quiet. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Maria made herself a simple lunch in the kitchen, something she never did when the family was home. She ate standing up by the window, looking out at the gray sky. It looked like rain. After lunch, she went back to work. She moved through the rooms mechanically, her mind somewhere else, and then she found herself in the living room, standing in front of the piano. She had dusted it on Friday, so it didn't really need cleaning, but she got her cloth anyway and wiped it down just to have something to do. Her hands moved slowly over the glossy black surface. The wood was cool and smooth under her fingers. Rain started hitting the windows. Soft at first, then harder. The sky grew darker. Maria stood there with her dusting cloth, staring at the keys. 88 keys. Black and white. She knew exactly how each one would feel under her fingers. She knew the weight of them, the resistance, the way they would respond to her touch. Her heart was beating faster. This was crazy. She couldn't, she shouldn't, but nobody was home. Nobody would know. Just one song, she thought, just one. After 15 years of silence, after all those nights playing on a broken keyboard that made no sound, she could play one real song on a real piano. Just to hear it again. Just to remember what it felt like. She looked around the empty apartment, listened to the rain and the silence. Her hands were trembling now. She put down the dusting cloth. She pulled out the piano bench and sat down slowly, like she was afraid it might break under her. Her hands hovered over the keys. She couldn't quite bring herself to touch them yet. What if she had forgotten? What if 15 years had erased everything she used to know? What if her fingers didn't remember? She took a deep breath and let her hands drop gently onto the keys. The sound that came out was like coming home after a long, long journey. Just a simple chord, but it filled the room and filled something inside her that had been empty for so many years. Tears immediately started running down her face. She didn't even try to stop them. Her fingers found their way to a piece she had loved since she was a teenager, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, slow and beautiful and so full of emotion that it had always made her cry. even back when she played it every day. She started playing. At first, her fingers were stiff and uncertain. 15 years was a long time. But muscle memory is a strange and powerful thing. Within a few measures, something clicked. Her hands remembered. They knew exactly where to go, exactly how to shape each phrase, exactly when to press harder and when to pull back. The music poured out of her like water from a broken dam. Everything she had kept locked inside for all these years, all the grief and loss and longing and regret, it all came out through her fingers and into that piano. She forgot where she was. She forgot she was supposed to be working. She forgot she was the housekeeper. She was just Maria again. Maria the pianist. The girl who used to play in concerts and win competitions and make people cry with her music. The rain poured down outside. The room grew darker, and Maria played. She played the Chopin piece all the way through, and then she played it again. And then she played other things. A Rachmaninoff prelude, some Debussy, a Mozart sonata she had performed at her last competition before she left the Philippines. Her face was wet with tears, but she didn't care. Her back hurt from sitting and her fingers were starting to ache, but she didn't care. She just played and played, making up for 15 years of silence. She didn't know how long she sat there. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe an hour. Time disappeared when she played. It always had. She was in the middle of a Schubert impromptu, her eyes closed, completely lost in the music when she heard it. A small sound. A gasp. Maria's eyes flew open. Her hands froze on the keys. The music stopped abruptly, leaving just the rain and her own harsh breathing. She turned her head toward the sound. Someone was standing in the doorway of the living room. Eleanor Harrington, Mr. Harrington's mother. She was 78 years old, elegant and serious, with white hair and sharp blue eyes. She visited the penthouse often, but usually stayed in the guest room and kept to herself. Maria had always been a little intimidated by her, and she was standing right there, one hand pressed against her chest, staring at Maria with wide eyes. For a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. The rain hammered against the windows. Then Maria jumped up from the piano bench so fast she almost knocked it over. "Mrs. Harrington, I am so sorry. I didn't know. I thought everyone was gone. I shouldn't have. I'm so sorry, please." The words tumbled out in a panic. Maria's whole body was shaking. She was going to get fired. After 8 years of good work, she was going to lose her job because she couldn't resist touching something that didn't belong to her. She needed this job. She couldn't lose this job. What would she do? How would she pay rent? How would she send money home? "I'm sorry," she said again, her voice breaking. "Please, I'm so sorry." But Eleanor Harrington wasn't angry. She was crying. Tears were running down her wrinkled cheeks, and she was pressing both hands to her chest now, like she was trying to hold her heart in place. "How long?" Eleanor said. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "How long have you played?" Maria couldn't speak. She just stood there, shaking, not understanding. Eleanor walked slowly into the room. She moved like someone in a dream. She pulled a chair over to the piano and sat down heavily, still staring at Maria. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the piano bench. "Please, sit down." Maria sat. She didn't know what else to do. Eleanor wiped her eyes with her hand. She let out a long, shaky breath. "I came back to get my medication," she said quietly. "I left it in the guest room. The family doesn't know I'm here. I let myself in and heard—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "I've been standing in the hallway for 10 minutes listening to you play." Maria didn't know what to say. "That was Chopin," Eleanor continued. "And Rachmaninoff. And Schubert. You played them perfectly. Better than perfectly. With real feeling. Real understanding." She leaned forward. "Who are you?" And for the first time in 8 years, Maria told someone her story. Maria sat on the piano bench, her hands folded in her lap, and she told Eleanor Harrington everything. She told her about growing up in Manila, about discovering the piano when she was 7 years old. Her elementary school had an old upright piano in the music room, and Maria would sneak in during lunch to touch the keys. The music teacher noticed and started giving her lessons for free. She told her about the conservatory, about practicing 6 hours a day, about her teacher who said she had something special, about the competitions she won when she was 15 and 16, about the scholarship that would have paid for everything, that would have let her study with the best teachers in the country. She told her about her father getting sick, about the hospital bills that kept coming and coming, about her mother crying at the kitchen table with a stack of papers, trying to figure out how they would pay for it all. I was the oldest, Maria said quietly, staring at her hands. My sisters and brother were still in school. My mother was working so hard already. I had to help. There was no other choice. Eleanor listened without interrupting. Her blue eyes were fixed on Maria's face. Maria told her about coming to America 15 years ago, about the promises she made to herself, that it would just be temporary, about how temporary became permanent so slowly she didn't even notice it happening. I thought my father would get better, Maria said. Her voice cracked. I thought I would save enough money and go home and finish my studies. But he died. And then there were funeral costs, and my youngest sister needed braces, and my brother needed books for university. And there was always something. There was always a reason to keep working, to keep sending money home. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I stopped playing, she continued. It hurt too much to think about music, about what I gave up. I have a keyboard at home, but the sound doesn't work anymore. Sometimes at night I play it anyway, just moving my fingers in the dark. But it's not the same. Nothing sounds comes out. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears again. Until today, Maria said. Today I couldn't help myself. I knew the family was gone. I knew nobody would know. I just wanted to hear it one more time. Real music from a real piano. I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't have touched it. I know it's not my place. Stop, Eleanor said firmly. She leaned forward in her chair. Stop apologizing. Maria looked up, surprised. Eleanor stood and walked to the piano. She ran her hand along its edge the same way Maria did when she dusted it. This piano has been sitting in this room for 3 years, Eleanor said. My daughter-in-law bought it because her decorator said it looked sophisticated. Nobody plays it. Not really. The grandchildren took lessons for a few months and quit. It just sits here looking expensive and impressive and completely wasted. She turned to face Maria. I have been a patron of the New York Philharmonic for 40 years, Eleanor said. I have heard thousands of performances. I have listened to some of the greatest pianists in the world. And what I just heard, what you just played, was extraordinary. Maria shook her head. No, I'm not. I haven't played in years. I'm nothing special anymore. You're wrong, Eleanor interrupted. Her voice was strong now, almost fierce. You're completely wrong. What you just played wasn't just technically good. It was emotionally devastating. You made me cry standing in the hallway. You made me feel things I haven't felt in years. That's not something you can fake. That's not something that goes away just because you haven't played in a while. She sat back down in the chair, closer to Maria this time. Do you know what most professional musicians are missing? Eleanor asked. They have the technique. They have the training. They can play all the notes perfectly. But they don't have the soul. They don't have the life experience that lets them really understand the music. You have both. You have the skill and you have suffered. That combination is rare, so rare Maria didn't know what to say. Nobody had talked to her like this in 15 years. Nobody had seen her as anything other than the housekeeper who cleaned their homes and then disappeared. I'm 68 years old, Eleanor said. I'm too old to start playing myself, but I'm not too old to recognize real talent when I hear it, and I'm not too old to do something about it. What do you mean? Maria asked. Eleanor smiled. It was the first time Maria had ever seen her smile. It made her look younger, softer. Play for me again, Eleanor said. Not because you're sorry. Not because you're asking permission. Play because you're a pianist and this is what you were meant to do. Maria's hands were shaking. I don't understand. You will, Eleanor said. But first play, please. So Maria played. This time she wasn't crying. This time she wasn't scared or guilty or ashamed. She played because someone was asking her to. Someone who understood. Someone who saw her not as the housekeeper but as the musician she used to be. She played a Rachmaninoff prelude, one of her favorites. The notes filled the room like they were meant to be there. Like the piano had been waiting all these years for someone who knew how to really use it. When she finished, Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Next month, she finally said, my family is hosting our annual charity gala. It's a big event. Very fancy. Lots of important people. We always have entertainment, usually a string quartet or a jazz singer. Maria nodded, not understanding where this was going. This year, Eleanor continued, We're going to have something different. We're going to have you. Maria's eyes went wide. What? No, I can't. I'm just the housekeeper. Your family would never. My family doesn't make the decisions about the gala, Eleanor said calmly. I do. I'm the one who started the Harrington Foundation. It's my charity, my event, and I want you to play. But I haven't performed in front of people in 15 years, Maria said, panic rising in her chest. I don't have the right clothes. I don't have sheet music. I don't even know if I can remember how to perform. It's different from just playing alone. I know it's scary, Eleanor said. But Maria, listen to me. You have a gift. A real gift. And it's being wasted. You're 42 years old. You're not too old. You're not too late. But if you don't do something now, if you don't take this chance, you might spend the rest of your life dusting pianos instead of playing them. The words hit Maria like a physical blow, because they were true, all of them. I'm scared, Maria whispered. I know, Eleanor said gently. But I'll help you. We have 4 weeks until the gala. We'll prepare. I know people, good people who can help. A pianist friend who can work with you on your performance technique. We'll find you something beautiful to wear. We'll choose the perfect pieces. What if I mess up? Maria asked. What if I get up there and forget everything? What if I embarrass you? Eleanor reached over and took Maria's rough, work-worn hands in her own soft ones. You won't, she said firmly. I heard what you can do. I heard your soul in that music. These people at the gala, they've heard professional musicians play perfectly polished performances 100 times, but they've never heard someone play the way you play, with that much heart. That much truth. Maria felt something shifting inside her. Something that had been frozen for 15 years was starting to crack and melt. Why are you doing this? She asked. Why do you care? Eleanor smiled again, and this time her eyes were sad. Because when I was your age, I wanted to be a painter. She said quietly. I was good too. But my family had other ideas. I married the man they chose. I had the children they expected. I became the person they wanted me to be. And I never picked up a paintbrush again. She squeezed Maria's hands. I can't get my dreams back, Eleanor said. But maybe I can help you get yours. Let me do this, please. Let me help you show the world who you really are. Maria looked at this elegant old woman who was holding her hands and offering her the impossible. A chance to play again. A chance to be seen. A chance to be herself. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight was breaking through the clouds. Okay, Maria whispered. Okay, I'll do it. Eleanor's face lit up with joy. Then we'd better get started, she said. We have a lot of work to do. The next 4 weeks were the strangest of Maria's life. During the day, she still worked as the housekeeper. She still arrived at 6 in the morning, still cleaned and dusted and organized. The Harrington family came back from their summer house and life returned to normal. They had no idea what had happened while they were gone. They had no idea what was coming. But 3 times a week in the evenings, Maria took the subway to Eleanor's apartment on the other side of the city. And there she practiced. Eleanor had kept her word. She had called in favors from old friends. A retired pianist named Vincent Chen agreed to coach Maria. He was 70 years old, had performed at Carnegie Hall in his prime, and had the strictest, most demanding teaching style Maria had ever experienced. Your technique is rusty, but it's still there, he told her after the first session. The problem isn't your fingers. It's your confidence. You play like you're apologizing. Like you don't deserve to be at the piano. We need to fix that. He worked with her on performance technique, how to walk on stage, how to bow, how to sit at the piano with confidence, how to recover if she made a mistake without letting the audience see her panic. You're not just a housekeeper who happens to play piano, he told her firmly. When you walk on that stage, you're a concert pianist. That's who you are. That's who you've always been. The audience needs to see that from the moment you appear. Maria practiced until her fingers ached. She practiced the pieces she would play until she could do them in her sleep. Eleanor sat in on some of the sessions, listening with her eyes closed, occasionally wiping away tears. They chose her repertoire carefully. She would play 3 pieces. First, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the piece Eleanor had first heard her play. Then a Rachmaninoff prelude, powerful and dramatic. And finally, her own arrangement of a Filipino folk song her mother used to sing to her as a child. Something nobody at the gala would have heard before. That last piece, Vincent said, that's going to be your secret weapon, These people have heard Chopin and Rachmaninoff 1,000 times. But that folk song, played with your technique and your emotion, that's going to destroy them. Eleanor took Maria shopping. Maria had protested, said she couldn't accept such an expensive gift, but Eleanor wouldn't hear it. "You're performing at my gala," she said. "You'll wear something appropriate." The dress they found was deep blue, simple but elegant. Maria barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked like someone who belonged on a stage. The night before the gala, Maria couldn't sleep. She lay in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, her heart racing. What was she doing? Who did she think she was? These people were going to be donors, socialites, important people from the art world. They were expecting a professional performer. What would they think when they saw the Harrington family's housekeeper walk on stage? She almost called Eleanor to back out. But something stopped her. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was 15 years of silence finally breaking. Maybe it was just exhaustion from holding everything in for so long. She was going to do this. The gala was held at a beautiful hotel ballroom in Midtown Manhattan. Maria arrived early, before any of the guests. She wore her new dress and shoes that Eleanor had insisted on buying. Her hair was styled differently, swept up in an elegant way she had watched 3 YouTube videos to learn. Vincent met her backstage. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Terrified," Maria said honestly. He smiled. "Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried." "The nerves mean you care. Use them. Let them sharpen your focus." Eleanor found her 20 minutes before the performance. She held Maria's shoulders and looked directly into her eyes. "You're going to be wonderful," she said. "I believe in you completely. Now go out there and show them who you are." Maria stood in the wings, waiting. She could hear the crowd in the ballroom. Hundreds of people talking, laughing, drinking champagne. Through a gap in the curtain, she could see the piano on stage. A beautiful grand piano, spotlit and waiting. She also saw the Harrington family at their table near the front. Mr. and Mrs. Harrington in their expensive evening clothes. The 2 teenage children looking bored with the whole event. They had no idea she was here. Eleanor had kept it completely secret. The host walked on stage to introduce the evening's entertainment. Maria's heart was pounding so hard she thought everyone must be able to hear it. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host said, "Eleanor Harrington has a special surprise for us this evening. Please welcome our guest pianist for tonight." He said her name, Maria Santos. It sounded foreign to her own ears, like she was hearing it for the first time. She walked out onto the stage. The lights were bright and hot. The crowd was a blur of faces and evening clothes. But she could see the Harrington table clearly. She saw Mr. Harrington's face change from polite interest to confusion. She saw Mrs. Harrington lean forward, squinting, trying to understand what she was seeing. She saw the moment they recognized her. The housekeeper. Their housekeeper was on stage. At the gala. About to perform. Mrs. Harrington's mouth fell open. Mr. Harrington turned to look at his mother, but Eleanor was staring straight ahead at the stage, a small smile on her face. Maria reached the piano. She bowed just like Vincent had taught her. Then she sat down on the bench. Her hands were shaking. She put them on her lap for a moment, took a deep breath, and looked out at the audience. All those faces. All those people. All of them waiting to see what the housekeeper could do. She placed her hands on the keys, and she began to play. The first notes of the Chopin nocturne floated out into the ballroom. Soft and gentle and heartbreakingly beautiful. The crowd immediately went silent. That kind of deep, complete silence that only happens when something extraordinary is occurring. Maria forgot about being nervous. She forgot about the Harringtons watching her with shocked faces. She forgot about everything except the music. Her fingers moved across the keys like they had never stopped. Like 15 years had been just a pause, a held breath, and now she was breathing again. The music poured out of her, every note clear and perfect and full of all the emotion she had kept locked inside. She played the Chopin with tears running down her face. She didn't try to hide them. She let them fall while her hands kept moving, kept playing, kept telling her story through the music. When the first piece ended, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then the applause started. Not polite clapping. Real applause. The kind that echoes through a room and doesn't want to stop. Maria barely heard it. She went straight into the Rachmaninoff. Powerful and dramatic and technically challenging. She attacked the keys with confidence now, with passion. This was who she was. This was what she was meant to do. The audience was mesmerized. Maria could feel it. She had them. She could sense them leaning forward in their seats, holding their breath during the quiet parts, feeling every emotion she was pouring into the music. When she finished the Rachmaninoff, the applause was even louder. She could see people wiping their eyes. She could see Eleanor at her table crying openly, looking proud and happy and vindicated. Then Maria played the folk song, the Filipino lullaby her mother had sung to her. She had arranged it herself, weaving the simple melody through complex harmonies and variations. It started soft and tender like a mother singing to a child. Then it built and grew, becoming something larger, something universal about home and loss and love and memory. This was the piece that broke everyone. She could hear people crying in the audience. Not just Eleanor now. Lots of people. The melody was simple, but the emotion behind it was overwhelming. Maria played it like a prayer, like a letter to her mother across the ocean, like a tribute to everyone who had ever sacrificed their dreams for the people they loved. When the final note faded into silence, nobody moved. Maria sat at the piano, her hands still on the keys, hardly believing what had just happened. Then the entire ballroom exploded. Everyone stood up at once. The applause was deafening. People were cheering, crying, shouting. It went on and on, 5 minutes of continuous applause and standing ovation. Maria stood and bowed, tears streaming down her face. She looked at the Harrington family. They were standing too, all of them. Mrs. Harrington was crying. Mr. Harrington looked stunned. Even the bored teenagers were clapping hard, their faces shocked and impressed. And Eleanor. Eleanor was standing with both hands pressed to her heart, mouthing the words, "Thank you." Maria had done it. She had played. She had shown them who she really was, and nothing was ever going to be the same again. Maria woke up the next morning in her small apartment and for a moment thought she had dreamed the whole thing. But her phone was buzzing. It had been buzzing all night. She picked it up and stared at the screen in disbelief. 37 missed calls. Over 200 text messages. Her email inbox was completely full. Someone had recorded her performance at the gala. Not just recorded it, they had posted it online. The video was everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. People were sharing it and resharing it, tagging their friends, adding comments. This made me cry at my desk at work. Who is this woman? She plays like she's lived 1,000 lives. I've never heard emotion like this in a piano performance. The video had gone viral overnight. 20 million views in less than 12 hours, and it was still climbing. Maria sat on her bed in her pajamas, scrolling through comment after comment, unable to process what was happening. This wasn't how the world worked for people like her. Housekeepers didn't become internet sensations. Middle-aged immigrant women didn't get discovered, but apparently sometimes they did. Her phone rang again, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Is this Maria Santos? The pianist. A woman's voice, professional and excited. Yes, Maria said uncertainly. Ms. Santos, my name is Patricia Chen. I'm a talent manager in New York. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Your performance last night was extraordinary. I'd love to meet with you to discuss representation. I have 3 recording labels already asking about you, and the director of the 92nd Street Y wants to book you for a concert series. Maria's head was spinning. I don't understand. I'm not a professional musician. I'm a housekeeper. Ms. Santos, Patricia said gently. After last night, you're whatever you want to be. The calls kept coming. Recording studios, concert halls, music festivals. A morning talk show wanted her to perform live. A major newspaper wanted to write a feature story about her. Eleanor called her at noon. Have you seen what's happening? Eleanor asked. She sounded happy, almost giddy. I can't believe this is real, Maria said. She was still in her apartment, still in her pajamas, afraid to go outside because reporters had started gathering on her street. I told you, Eleanor said. I told you that you were extraordinary. The world is finally seeing what I heard in that living room. What do I do? Maria asked. I don't know how to handle any of this. First, you call Patricia Chen back, Eleanor said. She's one of the best managers in the business. She'll help you navigate this. Second, you stop thinking of yourself as just a housekeeper. Maria, you're a pianist. You always have been. This is just the world catching up. That afternoon, the Harrington family called a meeting. Maria took the subway to their penthouse, her heart pounding. She didn't know if they were angry, embarrassed, or what. Mrs. Harrington opened the door herself, which had never happened before. She looked at Maria differently now, not through her, at her. "Come in," she said quietly. The whole family was there, sitting in the living room, the room where Maria had played that piano in the rain just a few weeks ago. "We owe you an apology," Mr. Harrington said. He looked uncomfortable but sincere. "You worked for us for 8 years and we never really saw you. We never asked about your life, your story, who you were before you came here. That was wrong." Mrs. Harrington nodded. "When I saw you walk on that stage last night, I was confused at first, then shocked. Then as you played, I realized I didn't know you at all. We invited you into our home every day and treated you like furniture. I'm ashamed of that." Even the teenagers spoke up. The daughter said, "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." "You're really talented," the son added. "I quit piano because it was boring. But watching you play, it wasn't boring at all. It was like you were speaking a different language." Maria didn't know what to say. She had spent so long being invisible that being seen was almost painful. "We understand if you want to quit," Mr. Harrington continued. "You clearly have other opportunities now. Better opportunities. But if you'd consider staying, we'd like to change things. Not as our housekeeper, as our friend. You could give the kids lessons. Practice on the piano whenever you want. We'd pay you what you're actually worth." "That's generous," Maria said carefully. "But I think my life is going to change pretty dramatically in the next few weeks. I'm not sure what I'll be doing." Mrs. Harrington smiled. It was the first real smile Maria had ever seen from her. "Whatever you do, we'll be cheering for you. And Maria, thank you for reminding us to pay attention, to see people." The months that followed were a whirlwind. Maria signed with Patricia Chen, who helped her sort through the overwhelming number of offers. They chose carefully, strategically, quality over quantity. 3 months after the gala, Maria recorded her debut album in a professional studio. Half classical pieces, half Filipino folk songs arranged for piano. She called it Songs from Home. 6 months after the gala, she performed at the 92nd Street Y. The concert sold out in 20 minutes. People who couldn't get tickets stood outside just to be part of the moment. 9 months after the gala, she played at Carnegie Hall. Maria Santos, who used to practice on a silent keyboard in a studio apartment, who dusted other people's pianos for 8 years, stood on the stage at Carnegie Hall and played for 2,000 people, who gave her a 15-minute standing ovation. She was 43 years old. She had spent 15 years being invisible, and now she was living the dream she thought had died forever. But the best part wasn't the fame or the opportunities. It was the message she could finally share. At every concert, Maria included a note in the program. She wrote it herself, and she never changed it. For everyone who still practices in silence, waiting for their moment. For everyone working jobs that make them invisible while their talents go unseen. For every immigrant who left their dreams behind to take care of their family. For everyone who thinks they're too old, too late, too forgotten. Your moment will come. Keep practicing. Keep hoping. Keep being who you really are, even when nobody's watching. I promise you, your moment will come. People wrote to her constantly. Other immigrants with hidden talents. Older people who thought they had missed their chance. Working class people who had given up on their dreams. Maria answered as many as she could. She told them her story. She told them it was never too late. Eleanor had kept her promise too. She established a scholarship fund in Maria's name. It provided money for talented musicians from working class backgrounds, people who couldn't afford conservatory or lessons or the time to pursue their art because they were too busy trying to survive. Every year, 5 young musicians received the Maria Santos Scholarship. Eleanor and Maria picked the recipients together. They looked for raw talent in unexpected places. They looked for people like Maria used to be. The Harrington family did change. They kept their promise. Maria still visited the penthouse regularly, but now it was to give piano lessons to the children who practiced seriously now and actually enjoyed it. The family had learned to see her. To see everyone, really. Mrs. Harrington started a program to interview the people who worked in their building, to learn their stories, to treat them like the complex human beings they were. Maria moved to a bigger apartment. She brought her mother over from the Philippines to live with her. On weekends, they would sit together and Maria would play the folk songs from home while her mother sang along with tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you," her mother would say. Your father would be so proud. I know, Mama, Maria would say. I finally understand that his sacrifice, my sacrifice, it wasn't wasted. It just took a different path than I expected. 2 years after the gala, Maria gave a TEDx talk. She told her whole story. She played the piano on stage. She talked about invisible people, about hidden talents, about the countless brilliant minds and gifted hands that were scrubbing floors and cleaning houses and driving cabs because they were too busy surviving to show the world what they could do. The talk went viral too. 30 million views. Companies started programs to discover talent among their cleaning staff, their service workers, their invisible employees. One evening, Maria returned to her old studio apartment building in Queens. She wanted to see it again, to remember where she came from. She stood outside and looked up at the window of the apartment where she used to live, where she used to play silent songs on a broken keyboard in the dark. A young woman came out of the building carrying a violin case. She looked tired, like she had just finished a long shift at work. Maria stopped her. Do you play? The woman looked surprised. Yes, I used to study in Mexico, but now I work 2 jobs. I don't have much time to practice anymore. Maria pulled out a business card and handed it to her. Call this number tomorrow. Ask for Patricia Chen. Tell her Maria Santos sent you. Tell her your story. The woman stared at the card, then at Maria, recognition dawning in her eyes. You're her, the pianist. I saw your video, Maria smiled. I was you, she said, and somebody gave me a chance. Now I'm giving you one. Call tomorrow. She walked away, leaving the young woman standing there holding the card like it was made of gold. Maria had learned something important. Dreams don't die just because you stop chasing them. They wait, they hide, they practice in silence. And when the moment finally comes, when